Some gardeners must really hate ants because they're always talking about different ways of getting rid of them. Get them out of the garden. If you thought home remedies for things like slugs and weeds were common, you should see all of the suggestions there are for ants. Now, there has been a lot of research done on fire ants. I mean, those things do sting and the stings hurt, so there's a good reason to control those. But what about all the other ants? Do we really need to control them? And if we do, what is the best way to do that? I'm going to have a closer look at what science says. And I'm going to go through and have a look at all of these home remedies and see which one of them actually works. Before I look at how to get rid of them, let's understand the problem they cause in the garden. For the most part, ants are not a problem in the garden. They don't eat plants except in very dry locations. Sure, you might find them on a half-eaten strawberry, but something else took a bit out that strawberry and the ant is just sucking up some of the leftover juices. When they make a nest, they add a lot of air to the soil, which can raise the height of the soil. This might be a problem when you mow the lawn, but in most cases that is a minor inconvenience. Ants even fertilize your plants. It has now been shown that ant excrement is great for soil and plants. Fire ants do bite and sting. It certainly makes sense getting rid of these, and nobody wants ants in the home. Ants can harm plants if they build their nest right under smaller plants or under plants whose roots can't tolerate the extra air and the dry conditions of the ant nests. So they can be a problem in rock gardens. Ants like the sandy soil of these gardens, and the plants are so small that it doesn't take much to kill them. You can also find ants on plants that have aphids. The ants actually farm the aphids and get honeydew from them. The real problem here are the aphids, not the ants. Get rid of the aphids and the ants leave the plant alone. Ants are also very valuable for the garden. They collect a lot of dead insects and they aerate the soil. For the most part, ants are not a big problem, but for some reason gardeners want to get rid of them. You have to understand that this is impossible. If you kill the ants in your garden or chase them away, other ants will simply find your garden and start living there. Getting rid of ants is never going to happen, and with the exception of fire ants, you might as well learn to live with them. It is important to point out that there are over 22,000 species of ants, and yet when people talk about home remedies to get rid of ants, they rarely mention the type of ant being controlled. A particular remedy may work on one type of ant, but may not work on other types. Let's look at some proposed ant controls.
Does diatomaceous earth kill ants? Diatomaceous earth, also called DE, is the skeletal remains of marine diatoms. They are abrasive and have a drying ability. It is this drying ability that makes them dangerous to insects. Insects stay hydrated by excreting a waxy material onto their bodies. The DE absorbs this protection and causes the insect to dry out and die. One of the problems with DE is that it only works when dry. If it gets wet, it no longer works. If wet DE dries out, it becomes active again. For DE to work, you need to put it in a location where the ants come into contact with it. Dusting it into nest openings works well. Ants can then carry it deeper into the nest where it affects other ants. Does DE work? It will kill some ants, but it is unlikely to kill a whole colony.
Does borax kill ants? Borax is quite toxic to ants. They can't smell it or taste it. When it is mixed with sugar, the ants take it back to the nest along with the sugar and feed it to the larvae and queen. Over time, they die from boron poisoning. Borax is also the active ingredient in various commercial ant control products. There are numerous home remedies being promoted, and some are quite complex and include other ingredients which are completely unnecessary. The simplest formula is to mix borax and sugar 50/50 and place it near a nest. You can also dissolve that in water if you want a liquid form. Borax contains boron, an element that is toxic to both plants and animals, and putting too much in the soil near plants can kill them. It has been used for many years as a cleaning agent, so it is relatively safe for humans, but make sure your children and pets don't eat it. Does cornmeal kill ants? The claim goes like this: put cornmeal near the nest. Ants will eat the cornmeal, and once it's inside their stomach, it absorbs water, expands, and the ants blow up. Cool story, but complete nonsense. But to start with, adult ants do not eat solid food. They would never eat cornmeal. Besides, cornmeal will not blow up any insect. The ants might pick up some cornmeal and take it into the nest to feed larvae who can eat solid food. The larvae then regurgitate digested cornmeal in liquid form, which the adults eat. Cornmeal is actually good food for ants. How did this myth start? I'm just guessing, but cornmeal is frequently used in chemical ant baits. The ants love corn, so they take the cornmeal along with the pesticide back to their nest. The pesticide then kills them. Imagine the ants in their nest, sitting by a cozy fireplace, laughing their heads off at the human gardeners who keep feeding them cornmeal. Will nematodes kill ants? There are commercial products which contain nematodes and claim to attack and kill young ant larvae in nests and repel adult ants from building new nests in treated areas. The University of Florida Extension Office has this to say: they have not proven effective for actually reducing fire ant populations or fire ant colonies in the field. We are not aware of any credible scientific evidence that documents any nematode species to be efficient for controlling imported fire ant colonies. These nematodes are able to kill individual ants in the laboratory, but in field trials, the ant colonies usually respond to nematodes by moving. I contacted 2 companies that sell such products and asked them for research that supported their claims. One never responded, and the other had this to say: this product does not kill the ants, it irritates them so they move away. Unfortunately, how far away is unknown until you have made your first application, and repeat applications are needed every 4 weeks until the ants are gone. Nematodes don't work, or don't work very well. Can you kill ants with boiling water? Many people claim that pouring boiling water into an ant nest will kill them. The truth is that ant nests can go very deep in the ground, as much as 6 feet or 2 meters, for fire ants. At the first disturbance to a nest, the queen is moved lower in the nest. Unless the boiling water reaches her and kills her, the nest will survive. Here is what the experts say about using boiling water on fire ants. 1 to 2 gallons of boiling water will kill fresh fire ant mounds 60% of the time, but be careful not to cook plants. The University of Florida says scalding water has a success rate of 20 to 60%. Slowly pour at least 3 gallons onto the mound, being careful to avoid getting burned. A mound may need several treatments to reach and kill the queen and brood. It works some of the time on new nests, but you need to use a lot of water. As ant nests get older, they get larger and deeper, and then boiling water becomes less effective. Does mint get rid of ants? Lots of people suggest growing aromatic plants like mints, and the ants hate the smell. They just take off. But then there are also people who claim that the ants make their nests right underneath their mint plants. Boy, if they hated the smell, why would they do that? I've run my own tests, which I've documented on my website, gardenmist.com. And quite honestly, ants crawl right over top of mint. I've seen no evidence that a mint plant will persuade an ant to move. Mint certainly doesn't work, and I suspect most other fragrant plants don't either. One of the reasons is that the plants are fragrant to us, not necessarily to the ants. Coffee grounds and ants. Both my own experiments and that of Dr. Wizzy Brown, an entomologist at Texas AgriLife Extension, show that coffee grounds do not affect ants. Can cinnamon control ants? The first thing to understand is that the cinnamon we buy at grocery stores is not real cinnamon. It is an inexpensive imposter. Because of that, I suspect most anecdotal claims are for this substitute and not real cinnamon. But who knows? Dr. Wizzy Brown has also tested cinnamon on fire ants and found no effect. Cinnamon essential oil was tested and found to both repel ants and kill them. This fact may have been used by gardeners to conclude that cinnamon powder works. This sort of incorrect use of scientific data is common. Essential oils are a very concentrated form of cinnamon and behaves differently than the dry powder. As an aside, grocery store cinnamon does stop damping off in seedlings. Plants and essential oils. Essential oils are extracts from plants that contain various chemicals in a concentrated form. The attraction for gardeners is that they are considered to be natural and less toxic than synthetic pesticides. Studies have found that various oils slow down the feeding behavior of fire ants or reduce the number of workers sent to food. However, these effects are short-lived and they don't cause the colony to move or to die out. Tests have shown that a 1% solution of peppermint oil may deter ants, but it needs to be applied weekly. Citrus oil extract has also been shown to work as a nest drench. Use a solution made with 1.5 fluid ounces of orange oil and 3 fluid ounces Dawn soap mixed in 1 gallon of water. Use 1 gallon per mound. Just because the extracts work a bit does not mean that the living plants also work. That is a common mistake made by gardeners. Can aspartame control ants? The legend says that if you put some sweetener containing aspartame on the nest, it will kill the ants. In 2006, Spoof News posted an article detailing the toxicity of aspartame on ants. The title was, "FDA certifies aspartame as ant poison," and goes on to say, "That crap, aspartame kills ants dead. It works on carpenter ants, silverfish, roaches, and almost anything." The article ended with, "The story above is a satire or parody. It is entirely fictitious, but that did not stop the internet gods from spreading the myth, and numerous sites and newspapers still claim that aspartame kills ants." The mythical articles that develop from this spoof are quite entertaining if it was not so sad. Here is a glimpse at what one said. How does it work? Aspartame is a neuropoison and most likely kills the ants by interfering with their nervous system. It could be direct, like stopping their heart, or something more subtle, like killing their sense of taste, so they can't figure out what is eatable, or smell, so they can't follow their trails, or misidentify their colony's members, so they start fighting each other. Not sure what causes them to end up dying. Just know that for many species of ants, it will kill them quickly and effectively. None of the information in this paragraph was in the original spoof. The details are all made-up nonsense. Aspartame does not kill or deter ants. Use ants to kill ants. This is recommended for fire ants mostly. Take ants from one nest and dump them on the nest you are trying to get rid of. The ants fight and kill each other? Problem solved. Ants do defend their nest, but only if they have one queen. Many nests have more than one queen, and these nests will not fight with ants from another colony. So this method of moving ants is not effective. Disturbing nests physically does not get rid of them either, but it might get them to move the nest somewhere else. That don't control ants. People seem to just make stuff up, or they hear some facts and interpret them incorrectly. The net result is that most home remedies don't work. None of the following have any scientific support: dish soap, vinegar, bay leaf, chalk dust, marigold, cedar mulch, salt, baking soda, cornstarch, chives, garlic, cucumber rinds, club soda, and wood ashes. If you find some scientific support for these, let me know in the comments and include a reference to the study. So how do you control ants in the garden? Well, step one is to decide whether or not you really have to control them. Now, I get ants in the house, you don't want that. And fire ants certainly are a problem, but there are thousands of other ants, and they don't do a lot of harm in the garden. One thing I do know is that if you get rid of a colony of ants, there are lots of other ants out there who will take their place. So let's say you want to get rid of an ant colony. What does work? Well, diatomaceous earth does work, and so does borax. We know boron is toxic to them. Ants also don't like the smell of peppermint oil and citrus oil. And if you spread that around, the ants do tend to leave that area. What about commercial products? The University of Florida had this to say. Commercially available organic products that contain ingredients such as boric acid or diatomaceous earth can kill ants, but their effectiveness to kill whole colonies has not been consistently demonstrated. If you use these products, you're going to have to keep reapplying them, or the ants just come back and build a new colony. Nothing will keep ants out of your garden, except maybe an anteater. Now, if you want to increase the number of microbes in your soil and grow healthier plants, have a look at this video right here. And if you're building raised beds and you're wondering what kind of soil to use for those, have a look at this video here. Happy gardening.